If you're looking for a perfect all-around tripod, then you're probably looking for a travel tripod. They're lightweight and perfect for hiking, compact enough that you can attach it to the side of your camera bag or even put it inside your carry-on, and most of the options that I'll show you are even sturdy enough to shoot video content and long exposure photography. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about the 10 travel tripods that are behind me that are worth considering. I'll give you my top picks in each of these categories and rate each of the tripods based on this criteria, but also I'll point out some of the unique and maybe hidden features that some of these tripods have that you won't want to miss. One of the lightest, smallest, and actually least expensive options on this list is the Knockoff 60-inch carbon fiber travel tripod. It's actually one of the tripods I've had the longest and is a perfect option if you have a smaller camera body with a smaller lens. The reason for that is this right here. The ball head that comes with this camera is kind of small. The problem is that if you try to use this camera with a larger lens like a 70-200 and then you lock in your exposure, because the segments on it are a little bit thinner and a little bit lighter, sometimes the composition and the ball head will sag a little bit. The other disadvantage is that because this tripod has much thinner legs, by the time you extend the final segment, it's actually fairly thin and does wobble quite a bit. So whenever I've used this tripod for long exposures, typically I'll leave that last segment not extended. So when you fold it down at 2.2 pounds, it is one of the smaller options on the list. It's not the most compact. You'll see in a bit, there's kind of like some space in here where it maybe doesn't fold down as much as some of these other options, but for under $100, this is a really good option to consider. Before we continue, some of the tripods that you're about to see were sent to me. Others were bought with my own money, but this video is not sponsored. And if you like this video, the best way to let me know is by checking out the links for any of these tripods, which will be down in the description below. Coming in at 3.6 pounds, the next option is the heaviest option on our list. It is actually made of full aluminum and is a little bit of an older design. So much like the Knockoff one that you just saw, it kind of has these legs that don't necessarily compact as much as some of these newer tripods. You can see it kind of does the same thing as the last tripod where you invert it in order to get it into its packed state. The disadvantage, of course, is that there is a lot of space where you can't necessarily compact it that small, but it is a good option if you can find it on sale. Otherwise, if you can't, the first option, the Knockoff with the carbon fiber, is gonna be lighter, not as sturdy, but in my opinion, is a little bit better of a buy. Next up is more of a video-centric tripod. You'll notice because it has the video pan tilt head, but it does also have a ball head, which means you can still level it like you would a standard tripod for photography. This is the Ulanzi Coman Video Go and is probably one of my favorites out of all these, other than the fact that it doesn't have a standard ball head. You can take off the handle, but the handle itself, if you unscrew it, is a screwdriver. And you might look at this and go, well, why do I need a screwdriver in the handle of my tripod? And that's because the center column on this, not only can you take it out, so if you wanted to go inverted, you could actually attach your camera down here and then get really low to the ground. But if that's too much work, you may have noticed that this tripod has two segments to its center column. So I can remove the bottom portion of that center column, put this back in, and then instead of having to go inverted, I can basically flatten out the legs and put this tripod right against the ground. And I can't overstate how much I like this tripod. I just wish they made it in a photo version, or at least a version where I could take off the video panning head and put on a standard ball head. Otherwise, the latches, the machining, everything about this tripod screams high quality. One of my favorites on this list is this Ulanzi Quick Video Tripod, which is a little bit misleading because I've modified this one just a little bit. Unlike the last one where you needed a tool to remove the center column, you can actually just twist and the center column comes completely out. which is nice because if you're doing long exposure photography in the dark and you want to get low to the ground, you don't have to worry about fumbling with screws and bits and little pieces getting lost. One of the things you may have noticed with this tripod is that the legs are a single twist and then they extend. So there's less mechanisms, less weight, less things to kind of fuss with. But the disadvantage with that is, let's say you've put your camera in a stream or in a body of water where it's fully extended, but then you want to adjust it slightly. Well, there's no latch in the middle to just like move it down a little bit. You have to take it out of the water, twist it. Like there's no stops along the way to say like, how much of this do I want to extend? Do I only want to extend the top portion or the bottom portion? It's kind of all or nothing or little tweaks in between. But I did swap out the video head that came with this tripod and just put a standard newer ball head. The nice thing about that is it made the whole system way lighter. So instead of being 2.38 pounds, it's only 2.1 pounds, officially making it the lightest tripod on this list. However, because I did have to buy the ball head separately, it did make it a little bit more expensive, but not as expensive as one of the options that's not on the list, which is the Peak Design carbon fiber tripod. I know a lot of people have recommended it, but it is a $600 tripod and easily overpriced at this point for the amount of features that it's delivering. So while that tripod may have been innovative when it was announced several years ago, since then, I think there are a lot of other companies that are doing a better job today. One of those options being this, which looks very similar to the Peak Design tripod because it effectively borrows some of the things like the design of the tubes and the latches, although this newer tripod isn't quite as good of a quality as you would get with the Peak Design tripods. The latches just don't feel as sturdy. And again, like the first K&F tripod that I showed you, when you get to the last segment, it is very thin. But given the design and the fact that it is nice and compact, it will strap nicely to the side of a camera bag. I personally would just be worried about using this over the long term compared to some of the other options, which are a little bit more expensive. This guy is about $210 and about 2.5 pounds. So not the lightest, but also not the heaviest. So it kind of sits in the middle of the range if $200 is a budget that you're looking at. You'll notice that most of these tripods have 5 leg segments, and that's pretty typical, except for one of the ones that you'll see in a bit. This right here is probably my all-around favorite in terms of value and features. This is a K&F 62-inch carbon fiber travel tripod. There is also a serial number associated with this. It is a little bit hard to find, so make sure you check out the links down below. It's basic and functional, and one of the things that I absolutely love are the twist locks. I personally would choose a tripod that has twist locks over hinge locks because hinge locks can be a little bit finicky to operate, and if you have gloves on or something where your fingertips aren't perfectly accessible, sometimes just grabbing it and twisting all the locks at once is a lot faster than having to undo 4 or 5 different latches. This tripod also has a built-in monopod, so you can see how there is a kind of foam rubber grip on this one leg, and if you unscrew it, what you'll be able to do is then unscrew the head, screw the head onto this, and then you have a 2-in-1 tripod and monopod. And personally, this is a feature that I would love to see on every tripod where you're not stuck to one specific ball head, where you can swap these legs with that head depending on if you want a gear head or a video head or whatever it is to suit the type of photography that you're doing. The only disadvantage with this tripod is that unlike the Ulanzi ones that I showed you, the center column doesn't detach. You can completely remove it and put it in upside down, but you can't, like there's no split segment that if you wanted to have a smaller overall package or you wanted to do upright and get low to the ground, you can't do that. But coming in at 3 pounds and only $140, it is one of the best value options on this list. This tripod. This tripod is easily my most used tripod over the last year. Despite the fact that it doesn't have twist locks, and uses latches. I have brought this tripod to Iceland, to San Francisco, to Miami. It has basically been my go-to option because it is the perfect combination of features, weight, and size. It doesn't have any weird gaps in it. It is the easiest to strap to the side of your bag, whether you have a bottle holder or straps or whatever it is. It just always sits nicely. You don't have to worry about it being super tall and sticking out and bumping into things. The only real disadvantage with this tripod, having used it to shoot astro and at night, is that some of these knobs are a little bit smaller than some of the other tripods that I showed you. So if you want to extend the center column, there is a little latch right here, which can sometimes be hard to find. But like the other two Ulanzi tripods that I showed you, this one also has a removable center column. You can see it comes in two parts, and you may have just noticed I pulled out a little screwdriver from the bottom of the center column, and you can use that. I'm not gonna do it now because it's a little bit of a process, but you can detach the bottom portion so you can make your tripod lighter, and then much like the other Ulanzi one that I showed you, you can extend the legs flat and have your camera sit as close to the ground as possible. So for me, coming in at 2.5 pounds, the Zero Y tripod from Ulanzi is, Ulanzi? It's kind of like the Swiss Army do-it-all tripod for content creators. It is the one that I think I've recommended to all of my friends. It is a little bit more expensive, but if you can afford it, I highly recommend picking one up. But if that's a little bit too expensive, also coming in at 2.5 pounds, is this SmallRig AP10 travel tripod. Now this is the only tripod on this list that doesn't have a center column, so that's a little bit of a disadvantage if you have your camera set, your tripod set, and you maybe just wanna go a little bit higher or a little bit lower. It means you do have to adjust each of the leg segments individually, but it is a slightly cheaper tripod. The hardware on the bottom is made of plastic. It doesn't have that center column. The ball head isn't as big, so it won't be able to take as much weight, but it does have that traditional ball head design where it's not gonna be confusing. You're not gonna be fumbling for the buttons. They're right there, they're big. If you want to pan, you untwist this guy, you pan. If you want to change the legs, you can go completely flat because there's no center column. And much like the KNF one that I showed you, the one leg detaches. You can take the ball head, put that onto the leg, and now you have a 2-in-1 tripod or monopod. And I actually used this exact tripod monopod a few weeks ago when I was shooting the Honda Indy because I wanted a monopod and I didn't want to bring a full tripod with me because it doesn't make sense for shooting motorsports. So in those instances where you maybe have a slightly heavier lens and you want to stabilize it, but you don't want a tripod, having a 2-in-1 is a really great option. So this guy actually costs the same as the KNF one. Again, $140, a really great option, but maybe a little bit limiting because it doesn't have that center column. But if you want an upgrade from this SmallRig tripod, there's this SmallRig tripod, which actually combines a lot of the features that you saw in some of the other tripods. So it actually has a single twist and the whole thing collapses. So I'm gonna show you that again, but you might notice that on the leg, there's this lock, unlock symbol. And instead of having to twist, you can just twist the one and it unlocks them all, which is kind of clever. Unlike the Ulanzi Video Go tripod, where if you want to adjust it, you have to take it out of the water. This one, let's say you've got it set up and you just want to adjust the one leg, you can just adjust the one leg because there's a twist here, but when you're ready to compact it down or deploy it, you can grab the final segment. That twists everything because there is a little groove in the leg, and then it's super fast to compact. I don't know why more people aren't talking about this tripod because I've never seen that feature in any other photography tripod. And there are some very clear inspirations from some of the Ulanzi tripods. Like the ball head on this is kind of like this mushroom shaped kind of rotary style. I don't know what you call it, maybe like an inverted ball head, but it does have a tool on the bottom, which you may have noticed I didn't have to unscrew. There's kind of like a quick release button. It comes out, And then there's a hole where you can take the little screwdriver and unscrew the bottom section from the top section. So if you want to use this tripod without the center column, you can take that little guy, put it in, and then expand the legs, and then get as low to the ground as possible. You can also do the inverted thing if you still want to use the center column, but it is nice to have those various options. With the center column, the SmallRig AP100 Free Rover is one of the heavier options, but at only $200, it is one of the better value options on this list. This is the tripod that I've been waiting to talk about. One thing you'll notice right away is that this only has 4 segments, and the top segment is a little bit longer, and much like the Peak design and newer tripods, does feature this more robust triangular carbon fiber tube shape. In my eyes, this tripod is setting the new standard for what a travel tripod should be. It kind of combines a lot of the features that we've seen in all of these other tripods. It has a detachable center column. Actually, the mechanism for it doesn't require any tools whatsoever. It has a little lift, slide, can I do it? It has a little like lift, slide, pull out feature, and in like 2 seconds, the whole center column is gone. And much like all of the other options that we've seen, you can go perfectly flat against the ground. One thing you might notice is that the head on this is a little bit bulkier than some of the other options. And that's actually because it's using Ulanzi's F38 FalCam system. So this is actually a Peak design plate, which, fun fact, these work on this system. You can also use Arca Swiss plates, but if you have one of these plates and you put it down, did you notice that? Immediately it locked in. So I didn't have to twist anything. I can like crank it down to make sure it's locked in. At first, I was skeptical. When I originally got the 0Y tripod and the other ones that you saw, I avoided the F38 system because I thought I don't want something proprietary, but they've actually made it so it works with all of these other Arca Swiss style plates. But that does mean this tripod will come in at 3.37 pounds because there's all that extra hardware. If you don't want that hardware, you can also get a center column version of this that will just work with a regular ball head. So if you have a ball head that you like, you can buy that and just screw on whatever you want. The hardware on the bottom is extremely smooth, probably the easiest to operate out of all these other tripods, which is just reflective of the cost and the design of this tripod, which is very high end. At $500 right now, maybe it'll come on sale. This is the most expensive tripod on this list, but I also think it has some of the most innovative features, which for me, if this tripod was half a pound lighter and maybe $100 less expensive, it would be the one that I am recommending to everyone as your everyday content creation, video, photo, travel, photography tripod. Video, photo, everything tripod. I really like it, but it is a little bit too expensive to recommend as an everyday tripod for your everyday photographer. So what tripod do I recommend for the everyday photographer? That award has to go to the Ulanzi Komen 0Y tripod. It's my go-to, it's been my go-to for the last year, and in terms of features, size, weight, and functionality, it gets my top pick. So then what about the best value tripod? Well, I'd have to give that award to the K&F 62-inch carbon fiber travel tripod. Again, I'll put the serial numbers and the links down in the description below. But because this is a tripod, a monopod, the ball head can unscrew, you can put a different head on top. It pretty much has everything that you'd want. But if you're looking for the lightest weight option possible, that's when I'd recommend the Ulanzi quick release video tripod, but change out the head, get rid of that video head, and put on a nice ball head that will make it lighter and make it more versatile if you're doing photography. So hopefully you found a tripod among those 10 that caught your interest. If you did, let me know which one down below, or if there's one that I missed, go ahead and drop that in the comments. And if you like this video and you want to see more like it, check out this video here, or maybe even this video here. And until the next one, grab your camera, get out, and go shoot photos.